Right, joining us in the studio for this discussion is a lawyer and former secretary, Nigerian Bar Association, Stephen Obajaja. Thank you so much for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Really appreciate the honor for coming to TVC Breakfast this morning. But, Nigerians have been forward-looking as regards this administration stance in the fight against corruption, which is captured in their 8-point agenda. But one thing I found very interesting is when Mr. Olukoyede was being screened, he said the anti-graft war should start from the National Assembly. We are looking at the task ahead of it. And I felt when the lawmakers heard this, they were still able to confirm him. Is it to say that Nigeria is getting rid of corruption?
I have made the point before, and a few months ago when I was here, I said so. Nigeria is a country of high drama. When there was the issue of the minister who they say did not complete her NYSC and all that, I made that point. Who is talking about that now? Now, when the chairman of the EFCC was first appointed, there are many people who didn't know Ola Olukoyede, but all you heard was that a Yoruba man is heading the agency for the first time. A particular part of the country has always headed that agency. Oh, he's a pastor, he's a Christian. These are the inanities we involve ourselves in, which has ultimately ensured that Nigeria is where it is. Now, coming to the Senate, that same Senate confirmed him, right?
Right.
That's right.
He made two profound statements, and I am happy he's a lawyer. I believe and I think things will change. He said everything he will do will be in accordance with the rule of law. If he actually does so, then we might be on the path to properly fighting corruption. When he told the senators that he was probably going to start with them, what did they do? They all burst out laughing because they know that in our Nigeria, he will be unable to do so, however much he tries.
Really?
See, yes, we not since the Anti-Graft Commission was set up by the Olusegun Obasanjo administration. Have we not all been here? How many convictions, high-profile convictions have we had? Even the ones they managed to get, what happened? People were pardoned. People were patted on the back. How many senators have been investigated for corruption? Did this stop them from gravitating from governors to senators? It's a hard task. It's a difficult ask. His job is cut out for him. But what I know is that if people understand what the rule of law really is, and if he makes good his promise to do everything according to the rule of law, we might then begin to make progress. And fighting corruption in Nigeria, what does the rule of law entail? The rule of law entails that he has the power and he's able to even investigate the president who appointed him. Can he do that in Nigeria?
But the president has immunity.
Immunity.
If he has immunity, there are issues over which a president can be investigated while still in office, even if you can't prosecute the president right now.
Okay. Within what context would that be? For
For example, did you hear of the Watergate scandal in 1974 in the United States? President Nixon's Attorney General investigated him. In fact, he removed one Akibod for another. The one he appointed continued the investigation. When the heat became too much, he was going to be impeached or whatever, and he resigned. So those things are possible only if we do it under the context of the rule of law. And I'm excited that he's a lawyer and he has pinpointed the rule of law as the way to go.
People have expressed a level of worry as to the mandate. The mandate of the EFCC is clear-cut. But in reality, how well will the chairman, whoever the chairman is, how well will he do his job? Especially since, yes, he's appointed by the president, subject to Senate confirmation, but then there is a snag. I don't know whether you would agree it's a snag, the existence of the Attorney General of the Federation. A former chairman had issues with the AGF at the time, and now, in this context, do you see that as a hurdle for him? Because after all, the assumption is that he is subject, so to speak, to the AGF.
Yes, if there is sincerity of purpose, those offices should complement each other. But in Nigeria, things never and ever as they seem. Some of us have advocated before now, and we still do so, that the office of the Attorney General of the Federation and even those of the states is too political. Separate that office. Let us have an Attorney General who is solely the chief law officer of the Federation, and get a Minister for Justice. The minister will be the political appointee of the president, who takes care of whatever political administrative arm that the presidency wants. If you clearly have an Attorney General who is solely chief legal officer of the Federation, then it will give a leeway to the EFCC chairman, whoever that is, to do his job without necessarily pandering to the political whims and caprices of the Attorney General of the Federation and Commissioner and the Minister for Justice, who reports to the president.
You already, at the beginning, you expressed optimism about Ola Olukoyede that, being a lawyer and all of that, but other critics believe that because he was not an assistant commissioner of police, he might not be able to do the job. And this speaks to the fact that you said over the years, since the creation of the EFCC, have they been able to, prosecute certain, cases, to logical conclusion. So he now being a lawyer, do you not feel that might be a setback, or do you expect that he will even do better than his predecessors?
Yes, I said I was excited that he's a lawyer, and I say so advisedly. Now, as a lawyer, he understands the law. He has started on a good footing by harping on the rule of law as the focal point of whatever he does at the EFCC. Now, the question of qualification, I think Nigerians, as they say, sometimes they say we play too much. What the EFCC Act says, and it is disheartening that even senior lawyers come and argue this. The EFCC Act says rank of ASP or an equivalent, cognate experience of 15 years. Olukoyede, as he is 2 times qualified, twice over, to be a judge of the High Court or a Federal High Court. He's been a lawyer for 10 years. By the manner of his training and the experience he has had, if you're in private practice, you cannot but have that experience. How then is such a man who is qualified to hold high office as a High Court judge not qualified to head the commission, when the Commission Establishment Act says that Assistant Commissioner of Police or someone of equivalent rank? So I think the fact that he's a lawyer, I think the fact that he's been at the EFCC for a while, I think the fact that he understands what the country is now, I think the fact that he also knows from what he has seen that the anti-corruption war has stuttered several times. I think we can cut him some slack and give him the benefit of that. I think he will do.
I'm sure you're mindful.
He'll just be fine.
I'm sure you're mindful of the dramas that played out at the Senate during his screening. There was a time he faced the Senate president and said, for example, if I were to prosecute you and then, or investigate you, and that, caused a laughter,
And of course, he now changed it to his own senator representing his constituency.
And then he changed it to his own senator. But the Senate president had some words for him. He said, okay, don't come to me, you can go to others. But, more seriously, the Senate president also said something about the EFCC being unduly sensational. He gave an example of a former governor where he said the EFCC officials actually jumped through a roof in such an audacious manner. But at the end of the day, what did it all come down to? And he urged the EFCC to be less sensational and to focus on real investigation. I don't know where you stand in this argument.
Yes, I may not agree with the Senate president on many things, but on that score, I think he is right. The EFCC needs to talk less and do more. The EFCC needs to work and consume whatever they do under the auspices of the rule of law. There are big fishes to fry. What do? They leave those big fishes and start to go hunting after the small fries. The Senate president has stylishly said, don't come investigate me. But the Senate president has been investigated many times before. One of those who tried to prosecute him is Minister of Aviation today, Festus Keyamo. Many of them in the Senate have been investigated before. When we say Nigeria is a country of high drama, that's part of what we are talking about. You saw them laughing because, like I said, the EFCC is not likely to investigate any of them. But it is good that we have a man who seems to understand his mandate. It is good that he should not allow himself to be used as an attack dog against political opponents and the likes.
Well, the anti-graft agencies, the activities have been most times reactionary. It's been, isn't it expensive to fight crime than to prevent it from happening? Because most times they tend to, okay, you are corrupt, then we're going after you. But is it possible for them to preempt the tendencies to be corrupt? I mean, the tendencies to perpetrate crime or criminal activities so as to forestall it in order to help Nigeria save money from those who will steal our money? Because most times it's usually money. So what strategy do you think he can bring to the table to foresee criminal tendencies?
The only way to forestall criminal tendencies, the only way to dissuade people from dipping their hands in the common till is to have consequences. In Nigeria, there are no consequences. I have told you, examples are here, they are bound. The high-profile cases, those we managed to convict, what happened? Didn't someone pardon them? When they let off the hook somehow? There was a particular one that's particularly grating. Someone along with another was convicted and sent to jail. The other person convicted went on appeal, and the court overturned the appeal. Guess what happened? The high-profile political actor in jail took advantage of that ruling and is free today, and is also in the Senate.
All right,
Mr. Stephen, preemption,
Mr.
Obajaja, there are no consequences. People will steal if they can get away with it.
All right, that point is, sorry to break into your thoughts. We just need to quickly take a quick break, and then we'll pick it up from where you left off. Do stay with us here on The Breakfast Show. We'll take a break and be back. Thanks for staying with us here on TVC Breakfast. We've been speaking with a lawyer and former secretary, Nigeria Bar Association, Stephen Obajaja. We've been talking about the tasks ahead of the EFCC chairman, who comes on board at a time that the federal government is implementing reforms in the fight against corruption in the country. We've spoken to issues where they need to bring up strategies to forestall criminal tendencies, and also so many other tasks that are ahead of him. Kemi, you want to engage him?
Right. I wanted to also follow up with the point you made earlier about whether it is wiser or more expedient to prevent the crime, especially high-profile crimes, as against fighting it in court, fighting them in court. And, the task is onerous. You've alluded to that. I just wonder what way out. This is such a vicious cycle. They spend so much, and that's the least they do to execute a case, even despite the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, which was set up primarily to hasten criminal cases in court. We still have cases going for 10 years and the likes, and that is just at the lower court. And then you still have to slug it out at the Court of Appeal, which you have also said you come back and still nothing, still no conviction, or if at all it's overturned. So what is the solution?
The problem Nigeria has is a systemic one, and corruption has seemed to dog us all our lives since independence. There were judicial inquiries in the 1960s on corruption. There have been many since the 70s, 80s, 90s. Today, we have lost count. If we ran a proper country, you would not even need the EFCC. Whatever it is now is the job of the police, for God's sake. Now, the way forward, I mentioned it earlier, the only way to make a headway is to be serious about the fight against corruption, is to make sure that there are consequences, is to make sure that whatever consequences are will be deterrent. Now, look at it. In the past, we have had high-profile people who committed suicide because, yes, they didn't want whatever the bad things they had done to come into the open. But what do you have today? The average Nigerian will achieve high office accused of corruption, he will fight it with all his might. He goes to jail, come back and enjoy his loot, and we continue to worship him. So that's where we are now. There needs to be a reorientation. But we have been saying this for ages. Now we have even lost count of what reorientation is. See, there is Pius Adesomi, may his soul rest in peace.
Amen.
A beautiful writer. He once wrote that there are two classes of Nigerians. The ones in power now, enjoying the Commonwealth, and the ones who are waiting in the wings to get into power and continue to enjoy the Commonwealth, both legitimately and illegitimately. So we need to speak to ourselves. There should be a reawakening. Nigerians need to understand what corruption truly is. If my part of the country, if you go to my part of the country, Edo North, in fact, Edo North is practically cut out from the rest of Nigeria. Any way you used to access Edo North is gone. There was an Edo man who was Minister for Works under President Jonathan, who commissioned the Benin-Abuja highway, supposedly completed. Now, if people understand corruption, you get money to build a road, you don't build it. Somebody dies on that road. Who's responsible for that? And any man's death diminishes all of us. It could even be somebody close to you who will eventually die on that road. That's how corruption kills all of us. Yet we do not understand. We're only interested in the big houses, the wonderful places they live in, the big cars they drive, and all the good things they can afford. Without knowing that those Rolex watches, those gold chains cost lives because they are products of corruption.
Well, one of the things, you've actually given us, different manifestations of corruption beyond riches. But those who now have these riches, they feel, I'll steal what I can steal. We heard about, someone who stole more than 80 billion naira, and then you imagine how are you able to do this? And what they think is they will get to court and plea and explore the plea bargain option. I'm speaking to lawyers now. both of you, you understand the law very well. That concept, do you not feel it's a bane rather than giving a soft landing to one who is being accused of corruption? Should it be expunged? I'm just thinking aloud.
Plea bargain is not such a bad idea. It has been with us forever. Even in our local traditional settings, you make restitutions, you are let go, you are warned, you never probably do it again. But times have changed. The violent problem we face, you get plea bargain, you do all that, and the same people go back and do the same thing. If plea bargain is properly situated in context, if it will help the fight against corruption, for example, you could allow someone a plea bargain and still give a light sentence or something. The plea bargain I disagree with is the one where someone admits guilt, billions of naira, he returns a few millions, and you let him go home day one. No, let it still have some jail term and all that. Let it still be shown that even if we plea bargain, there will still be a level of consequences. There will still be a price to pay. And after that, what is next? Naming and shaming. We are in a place now where we should now do what is done for sex offenders. Our situation is dire. Our situation is unique. Name and shame. Let us have a register of everyone who have been convicted of corruption or offenses relating to dishonesty and bribery. Maybe that will help. We're in Nigeria where you don't know what will help anymore.
In fact, maybe make it into a calendar, certain month.
Then you have then the other point. Go to court. Go to court. It has become a mantra. I must tell you, it's our judiciary. If we destroy it, we have nothing else. However bad we think the system is, the judiciary does a yeoman's job. Go to court. The dockets are full, over full and spilling. Our judges, our magistrates do a very difficult job. So that is the point I have always made. Where a matter goes against lawyers and they come to mouth, oh, I was cheated, I was this, I was that. I can understand if people outside are saying so. But lawyers who know the system and know what it is should be better ambassadors of the judiciary. Now, sometimes you always hear somebody did not contest election, he's in the Senate. How did that come about? Do they know the issues that were canvassed in court? Did the man say he contested the primaries? On what point, what were the legal issues narrowed down on which judgment was based? Even lawyers, many haven't read the judgments. But then it's easy for us to sit down here and say, hey, he didn't contest election. What happened in court? What were the issues brought before the court over which the court adjudicated? The court is a court of evidence. A judge will only rule on what you bring before him or her. So some of this, we must disabuse the minds of our people. The judiciary now seems to be an endangered species, which ought not to be so. From the position, from the knowledge of an insider, I am telling you, there may be a few issues that are not quite right. The judiciary is still the last hope of the common man.
How would you address, or how would you want him to address the concerns, another concern of interagency rivalry? Of course, the ICPC is there, the fraud unit of the police, the fraud investigative unit, NFIA, is also there. And he himself also alluded to that point that he will ensure that, these cases are better managed to avoid rivalry or competition, so to speak.
Yes, I made the point before that we seem to duplicate institutions. You just said there is an anti-fraud unit in the police. There is a unit in Milverton Road. There's an FCID unit at Alagbon Close. If we were up and doing, we would not have needed the FCC in the first place. Whatever the FCC is doing now are the real things for which these units were established. And these are the small things that we do that shames us before the rest of the world. They may seem small. You are talking of interagency rivalry. You recall the other day that they said there was a shootout between the SSS and EFCC operatives about number 5, well, it's number 50, number 5 Ola Road. See, I was one of the first lawyers who was doing criminal defense when the EFCC was first established. The office has always been number 5 Ola Road. How come 30 years down the line, there is a scuffle between the DSS and EFCC about who owns that property? So interagency rivalry is real. Even in the United States, everywhere it happens. But what we need to do, tone it down. Whatever interagency rivalry you are having should be in the larger interest of the nation, in the larger interest of fighting corruption for which you were established, in the larger interest of getting Nigeria to the place where we, as ordinary Nigerians, envisage, where we all want.
Very quickly before we end this conversation, the last EFCC boss, Abdulrashid Bawa, was suspended indefinitely to allow for proper investigation into weighty allegations against him. And it looks like, virtually all EFCC chairmen either been disgraced out of office or thrown out of office, one issue or the other. How would you advise this current EFCC boss, czar, as they would say, to tread carefully and, land well?
We hope his case will be different, and I sincerely want his case to be different. Like you said, since 1999 or thereabout, when the anti-graft agency was established, every chairman left under a cloud. If the new chairman will look at his act, he's a lawyer, if he will clearly see what the FCC Act says, then and act accordingly, he may probably end well. Then there's always a fault line. The fault line is this. I think there are too many people who don't care whether Nigeria survives or not, and they are in high office. Those are the people who will try to corrupt him. If he does not allow himself to be ensnared, if he just does his job, take all the perks that come with it, and close his eyes to those people who will ensnare him, his case will probably be different. Bawa now, one of the critical issues, didn't the former governor accuse him of demanding, is it 17 million or whatever, and all that? An EFCC chairman who wants to end well and will end well must be able to close his eyes to the larger rot in the Nigerian society. He is not in the executive. He is not a politician. If he wants to deal as someone in the executive, if he wants to deal in politics, then it will be difficult not to be ensnared along the line.
Right. So for the purpose of education, EFCC was actually created in by an act on 12th of December 2002. Just for the benefit of Nigerians. We've been speaking with a lawyer and former secretary, Nigerian Bar Association, Stephen Obajaja. Thank you so much all the time for your keenness of insight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.